installation costs and postponing all payments for up to 1 year.
Oh my gosh.
Leader again. Why Ukraine is now saying the threat of Tomahawk missiles might be working.
I thought it was a very good phone call. I thought very productive. But I'll be meeting with President Putin, and we'll make a determination. Tomorrow I'm meeting with President Zelensky, and I'll be telling him about the call.
Plus the latest indictment of a Trump foe, this time his former national security advisor. The 18-count case that the feds are now laying out against John Bolton. Also tonight, it can be the last bit of hope when it comes for some to having children. IVF. The announcement from inside the Oval Office today, trying to make that grueling process not as pricey. And it is lights, camera, action in the big city tonight. A socialist frontrunner, a former governor, and a red beret Republican. Is this the last hurdle for Zohran Mamdani to clear before becoming the next mayor of New York City? But first tonight, here from the Hill, are we about to get round two? President Trump revealing in real time this morning a phone call with Vladimir Putin. And by the time they hung up, a second face-to-face meeting was scheduled, at least now in the works. The commander-in-chief saying he believes that he made, quote-unquote, great progress in that phone call with Putin. And this is not likely to be the only back-to-back, because tomorrow, the president will sit down with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky in the Oval Office. This was earlier today. Zelensky now on U.S. soil and saying he thinks he knows what this is all about. Tomahawk missiles. Let me explain to you here for a second. The long-range missiles, they can cover some 1,500 miles. So, as you can see here, that could allow Ukraine potentially to strike deep inside Russia. They also can move around, fly at low altitude, making them hard to detect on radar. Now, this is why we're talking about it, and this is why Zelensky brought it up, and maybe this is why the Putin phone call happened. Because Trump first laid out the idea of sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine just days ago. You know when he did it? When he was on Air Force One, as he headed to the Middle East to celebrate a peace deal. And from inside the Oval Office today, Trump revealed, he was asked about this. You would expect it, right? What did you talk to Putin about? Did the Tomahawk talk come up? Trump said it did. He described it this way.
I did actually say, would you mind if I gave a couple of thousand Tomahawks to your opposition? I did say that to him. I said it just that way. He didn't like the idea. He really didn't like the idea. Tomahawk is a vicious weapon. It's a vicious, offensive, incredibly destructive weapon.
So Trump made the threat. Putin then got on the phone call and they talked about it. It all unfolds 2 months after Trump and Putin. We remember this scene, right? August 15th at the end of the summer there in Alaska. But the only things that really materialized after that meeting were drones that were then unloaded into Ukraine in the following days and weeks, followed by questions about if this actually accomplished anything. But since then, how about this? The First Lady, Melania Trump, revealed that she has been communicating with Putin, even announcing the return of stolen Ukrainian children. And tonight, we now know that a meeting in Hungary is set to take place, as the president puts it, likely in the coming weeks, between Trump and Putin once again. A lot to get to tonight. We begin, though, here on the Hill with the former Army four-star general, NATO Supreme Allied Commander in Europe, General Wesley Clark. Always nice to see you, sir, back with us here on the Hill. So I laid out some of it, and I think a lot of this comes down to that threat from the Tomahawk missiles. Zelensky says that's why there's movement. Trump said they talked about it on the phone call. Is that what sort of brought all of this together, General?
I hope it did. But we've had talk of sanctions. We've had threats of sanctions. We had congressional legislation authorizing sanctions. We've had the president saying he's very disappointed in Vladimir Putin. We've been saying for months and months and months, put the military pressure on. He's authorized the Europeans to buy U.S. weapons to give or resell to Ukraine. That's good. And he finished off, or almost finished off, the Biden packages, but no new U.S. weapons. And I know the president has this theory that somehow the U.S. and Russia could be best buddies. And we can do great business together. And we just have to get the Ukraine issue settled and the world can go back to normal. And Vladimir Putin plays on this. This is the way the Russians operate. He wants Ukraine. He wants all of Ukraine. He wants NATO out.
So do you think Trump's wasting his time then?
No, well, you never waste your time when you're talking to the adversary. But no, I don't think he's wasting his time. But you have to be careful because you run the risk of inflating expectations and diminishing the real pressure on Putin. So the truth is the Ukrainians don't have the technology to use the Tomahawk missile effectively. They can't launch it, and you'd have to give them the launchers that have to be trained on it. They don't have the in-course correction, guidance, and updates themselves. That would be U.S.-led and U.S.-operated while the missile's in flight. So, you know, it's a nice vehicle for discussion.
Okay.
But from Putin's perspective, this is an opportunity to stall further assistance while I finish my objectives and try to get all the way through the 2025 campaign season. And that's the way Putin would see it. Now, maybe Putin's had a miraculous change of heart. Maybe he's given up a 25-year dream of taking over Ukraine. Suddenly it's come to him that he should be a human being again. But that would be surprising, Blake. The most likely outcome of this is more delays, more promises, and more killing of Ukrainian civilians and destruction of Ukrainian infrastructure.
What do you make of the involvement of the First Lady Melania Trump? It is not unusual, General, for the First Lady to get involved in domestic issues. She made this announcement last week, or just the other day, that she's been communicating with Putin, and then there were the 8 children that were returned back to Russia. What do you make of her involvement?
I think it's great. And I think if she gets 10 of these children back, it's wonderful. Yeah. There have been thousands and thousands, and nobody knows how many thousands really have been taken. And there are rumors that some of these children have been used. They've taken organs from their bodies and things like this. It's a horrible situation, and that she's addressing it. And I'm sure she speaks Russian. She grew up in Slovenia behind the Iron Curtain at that point, or as part of Yugoslavia. I'm sure that, you know, she can communicate directly. I think it's great that she's doing it. Bring those kids back. That's an essential part of any peace agreement. Like, we've got to have those kids back.
Let me leave you with this, General. Here was the president today, and I want to get your reaction on the other side.
We hope we're going to get it stopped. I thought this would be, because of my relationship with President Putin, I thought this would be very quick. And it's turned out to be, who would think I did Middle East before I did this?
Who would think I did Middle East before this, in meaning peace? Are you as surprised?
Not surprised. Even when I was NATO commander in the year 2000, it was clear to everybody in the region that Putin was determined to restore the space, the boundaries, the terrain of the former Soviet Union. And he's worked assiduously at it. He invaded Georgia, no consequences. Seized Crimea, no consequences. Invaded Donbass. The United States refused to provide lethal assistance to the Ukrainians. They lost 10,000 people fighting, trying to hold on to their country before the big invasion of 2022. So, you know, this is a deeply embedded, very emotional subject to Vladimir Putin. Going to be very, very difficult for that man to suddenly change his mind. And here's the thing, Blake, if I could leave you with this.
Yep.
Everybody's concerned that if you suddenly stop the fighting like this, of course we want a ceasefire, but if it's not followed by anything, what's to prevent Russia from simply refurbishing its forces, building more? They're going 24/7 on their defense industrial complex. No one in Europe, not in the United States, we're not doing that. And then when the winter has passed and there's good campaign weather again in June, boom, off it goes again. So there are many concerns here. I hope President Trump can pull the rabbit out of the hat and get a peace agreement.
We'll leave it there. General Wesley Clark, always nice to see you, sir, with us tonight here on the Hill. Catch you again soon. All right, so the president today, in the middle of all this, posting on Truth Social, at one point he said, quote, "I actually believe that the success in the Middle East will help in our negotiation in attaining an end to the war with Russia and Ukraine. So if you think about that statement there, what about the other major leaders in the world? Perhaps possibly cutting a deal with the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping. With us now, the Michigan Republican Congressman John Molinar, chairman of the House Select Committee on China, also a member of the House Appropriations Committee. Congressman, thanks for standing by, being with us tonight here on the Hill. That statement stood out to me, and it's a theory that I've been talking about in the last couple of days here of after Trump strikes that Middle East peace deal, what's Putin thinking? We saw that today, but you're the ranking member on the China Select Committee. What do you think Xi Jinping's thinking right now?
Well, first, we have to recognize Xi Jinping is rooting for Putin. They're funding Putin's war, and they talk about a no-limits partnership. And I have to say that, you know, I hope that people recognize that we wouldn't be having a war right now in Ukraine if it wasn't for China funding and supplying dual-use technologies to help the Russians prosecute this war. But I think Xi Jinping, probably like others, has been very surprised at the Ukrainians' resolve, their willingness to fight back, and the success that they've had when they are drastically outgunned by Russia. And so I think it gives Xi Jinping pause when he starts thinking about taking Taiwan by force. And so my hope is that we will continue to see a recognition that peace through strength works, and President Trump has demonstrated that, working in the Middle East to bring peaceful resolution there, and I hope that it continues as he works in other areas of the globe.
Is the thing that gets these leaders to the table at the end of the day, is it tariffs and the threat of?
Well, you know, Xi Jinping just fired a loaded gun at the American economy when he started restricting rare earth materials, magnets, materials that we need for our military, for our national defense, for our manufacturing, and he's going to use every bit of leverage he can to accomplish his goals. And I think it was a huge wake-up call around the world because our allies are affected. He's trying to intimidate allies and divide us from our allies. And it's important that we continue to show resolve and make sure that we lessen our dependence on China. They are not a reliable ally, and they are an adversary.
Do you think Trump and Xi end up meeting here in the coming weeks? Because it seems like this could set up of a meeting in Hungary with Putin and possibly in Asia a meeting with Trump and Xi. Do you think they get there, or these two sides right now, as the president described it yesterday, are in a trade war and they're not ready to meet?
Well, I do think there's a chance that they would meet sort of on the sidelines of an upcoming, meeting. But I think it's important to note that America, we have an opportunity to rebuild our industrial base, our military industrial base, and we have a lead in many technologies. And what we've done as a mistake over the last 30 years is we thought that China would become more democratic, more freedom-loving, more a responsible partner in the world. Under Xi Jinping, they've done just the opposite, more aggressive, more threatening, and more oppressive.
It's interesting as I hear you, as I mentioned, you're the ranking member on the China Select Committee. Wesley Clark, his military background. Both of you kind of saying similar things about two different foes, right? Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping. I got to leave it there. Congressman John Molinar with us tonight here on the Hill. Thanks for the time, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, still to come tonight. There are breaking developments involving that man right there, John Bolton, the former national security advisor under President Trump. Why he was just indicted. Plus, the president announcing a plan to expand IVF services. What that means for cost and coverage. The head of the FDA, Dr. Marty Makary, with us in moments. Plus this.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a break.
All right. We'll go to the audience. It was the moment. What caused Stephen A. Smith to walk off the stage at the Kennedy Center last night? I thank you for being with us just down the road from the Kennedy Center. I'm Blake Burman. This is The Hill. Other side of the breaks, 4 minutes out.
People cool drops.
One of the president's fiercest critics, at least in foreign policy, now facing a grand jury indictment. The former national security advisor John Bolton charged with 18 counts related to the alleged retention and transmission of classified information. Bolton and his attorneys claim it's all about political retribution. He is the latest of President Trump's opponents to face criminal charges following the New York Attorney General Letitia James and the FBI Director James Comey. Different cases, but you know the names. President Trump asked about Bolton earlier today.
I didn't know that. You told me for the first time, but I think he's, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes, right? That's the way it goes. Will I what?
Have you reviewed the case against him?
No, I haven't. I haven't. But I just think he's a bad person.
Two of the best legal minds I know. With me here tonight, Scott Bolton, News Nation contributor, and Bill McGinley, former White House cabinet secretary in the first administration. All right, Scott, your screen left. Bill, your screen right. I think that's probably fitting here, at least where you both lean politically. Bill, I'll start with you. Is this justified?
Yeah, I mean, if you read this indictment, it's a speaking indictment, unlike the Tish James and James Comey indictments. Anybody who has been in government where you had a security clearance understands the training that you get. John Bolton held 3 sensitive positions at the Department of Justice, at the State Department, and then as National Security Advisor. He understood the rules. He understood the need to keep classified information in a SCIF or a secured environment and only discussed over secured communications. The indictment lays out how he was basically emailing, presumably family members, individuals 1 and 2, with information that could do grave harm to the national security, and a foreign power hacked into those emails. So, yeah, I think this is a serious charge.
Well, anytime you're indicted, it's a serious charge. The real question for the defense in this case is going to be, one, is there anything new here? Because he was investigated. There was civil litigation regarding how he was handling these materials. The indictment clearly adds to that and makes him look very, very reckless. I will concede that.
Oh, wow.
He's got counsel Abby Lowell, who says nothing to see here. This has been investigated, and somehow suggested that Bolton sharing this information with loved ones or his family would absolve him somehow of any criminal exposure. This case is different than Comey and Tish James, because the frontline prosecutors in Maryland prosecuted this case. I've done a lot of cases against that office. They're very good. And Biden's administration investigated this case. So we'll have to see. There's more meat on the bone for the other two.
Abby Lowell, the high-powered attorney for John Bolton, calls it, quote-unquote, political revenge. Here's the statement that caught my attention, guys. I want to put it up on the screen. Kash Patel, the FBI's investigation revealed that John Bolton allegedly transmitted top-secret information using personal online accounts and retained said documents in his house in direct violation of federal law. If you take out the name John Bolton and you start putting other names in there, should Hillary Clinton be worried? Should Mike Waltz and everyone on that Signal chat, if a Democratic president wants to get a little, wants to do a little shoe on the other foot, be worried in the years to come, Bill?
Look, I think, number one, there's no family exception to the requirement to keep secure, classified information secure. So I don't think that's going to be a very good defense. I think, there are numerous cases where lower level government officials, whether at the state or federal level, inadvertently removed classified documents and faced prosecution and or disciplinary actions. This is something that the government has to and has been taking very seriously. So the question is whether some of the people who got off in the past, Hillary Clinton being the most prominent amongst them, I think, she should be concerned that something like this could be reopened, because, if you have classified information to this day, I think that this FBI and this Department of Justice are going to look at it, because it can do grave harm to the national security.
Scott, real quick.
Yeah, the statute of limitations has got to run, and if there is no statute of limitations, I wouldn't be worried about it. The number one guy who ought to be worried about this is Donald Trump, who was being criminally prosecuted for similar conduct. And of course, he won the election, and then that all stopped. So if I was Donald Trump, I'd be worried about the future.
All right.
But as opposed
Scott
to
Bolton.
everybody else, Blake, Donald Trump was president of the United States, had the authority to declassify. Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, they do not.
Interesting, and that's, it's why I put that statement up and bring up the point and pose the question. But for now, the here and now is John Bolton. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Scott Bolton, Bill McGinley, appreciate y'all. See you soon. Thanks. Still much more ahead here on the Hill. A one-man protest. There's a Republican still showing up to his office every single day despite the shutdown. I'm going to talk to him live on the other side of the break. Plus, the president's announcement on IVF. The head of the FDA, Dr. Marty Makary, when we return.
It's 9 today.
Today, I'm pleased to announce that after extensive negotiations, EMD Serrano, the largest fertility drug manufacturer in the world, has agreed to provide massive discounts to all fertility drugs they sell in the United States, including the most popular drug of all, the IVF drug Gonal-F.
6:30 here in Washington tonight. That was the president just a little while ago announcing new action from the federal government on in vitro fertilization, otherwise commonly known as IVF. The new guidance includes a deal with the pharmaceutical company EMD Serrano for discounted prices on IVF drugs, an effort by the FDA to expedite the removal and approval process for new IVF drugs, and guidance to employers to cover IVF on company insurance plans. Basically, the administration standing behind the principle. With us now, once again, here on the Hill, he is the commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration, live with us tonight from the North Lawn, Dr. Marty Makary. Doctor, there was that big announcement in the Oval. I appreciate you coming out to the camera tonight. Explain it. What happened?
Well, it was a milestone moment, Blake, for the country. 8 out of 10 couples will struggle with infertility, and so there are many couples that are going to be looking to this as a potentially promising treatment, where we have got a new medication now that's going to be under review at the FDA in our new expedited pathway. We've got a reduction in prices of the common hormones that are used, the Gonal-F hormone that the president just mentioned, and also another common therapy. The price is going to be cut significantly. We're talking about a price cut from $242 down to as low as $10. So for the many couples, and the correct number, I'm sorry, is 1 in 8 couples struggles with infertility in the United States. For many of those families, this is a significant game-changing moment, because the affordability crisis of IVF results in reduced access. So we're both increasing affordability and access of IVF and creating a legal pathway for it to be an employer benefit for employer-sponsored health plans.
When do you get there on the pricing? Because as you know, Doctor, the president had said in the home stretch of the campaign that this would be free, that this would be nationwide and free. You didn't get there now, and so when people hear about the reduced prices, when does that come, and do you think you ever get to a point where this is free nationwide?
Well, look, going from $242 down to $10 is such a significant reduction in price.
No, I'm not downplaying that. I'm just wondering when you get there.
Well, look, this is delivering on a promise. You're going to have a tremendous amount of families in the United States now that are going to be able to be within reach. This is going to be available to them, affordable, accessible. Remember, many families need to go through multiple cycles.
Yeah.
So if you talk about a $5,000 cycle and having to go through that, not only the pain and trauma, but going through that 3, 5, 10 times, there's not just the emotional toxicity, there's the financial toxicity, which as of today is significantly reduced. Remember, many drugs in the United States, one by one, the pharmaceutical CEOs are coming into the White House and they're announcing massive reductions. We're talking about taking the price of drugs from the thousands down to the tens of dollars, and that's something we're seeing broadly.
Yeah, look, I mean, when I talk to my friends about this, I have young kids. My friends, a lot of them have kids. You hear stories about IVF, and obviously it is it is a challenge for parents and young women and their families, especially, to go through this, and the hope that it brings for so many. Obviously, it's a big deal. Let me ask you, part of this involves Trump RX. How big do you expect that to get in the coming years?
Well, look, if you like healthcare's middlemen, then Trump RX is not for you. But if you want to bypass the giant middlemen of healthcare and go direct, this is an opportunity to do that. Now, it's not the government selling the medications directly to you. It's curating where these incredible low prices are going to be, and there will be links to be able to get people those medications directly. And that has long been seen as a major health reform that is necessary, and there's been conversations about it, but you've never seen it happen until now. And I will say something else. We are at the FDA going deep into the pipeline of what's out there to find out what are the most amazing and potentially promising treatments, and we're bringing those treatments to the front of the line. Any treatment that meets a large unmet public health need, or is going to result in domestic manufacturing, or affordable prices where the price is going to be equalized with other wealthy countries around the world, what we call most favored nation status pricing. These are the president's national priorities, and we are identifying incredible treatments for blindness, for deafness, for pancreatic cancer, for type 1 diabetes. A company that's going to make Augmentin, a popular antibiotic, now in the United States. That's a national security issue. So this national priority voucher program at the FDA really goes out, it proactively identifies these potentially promising treatments.
You know this, but I want to leave our audience with this image. The U.S. birth rate has been steadily declining and rapidly. I think Elon Musk believes this is one of the great issues of our time, and obviously the announcement today could potentially address just that. Dr. Marty Makary, Commissioner of the FDA, with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Blake.
Of course. All right, meantime, the government shutdown, day 16, coming to a close. Still no deal after yet another vote in the Senate, and you know how the story goes at this point, a failed vote. Federal employees like air traffic controllers bearing the brunt of the consequences as a result. Last night, NewsNation Town Hall. Hope you watched it. Here's what one of them had to say during an exchange with Stephen A. Smith at the Kennedy Center. Watch.
Do you think that this shutdown could actually be longer than the previous shutdowns due to the external pressures, political pressures that we're having an effect right now? Because I am actually driving DoorDash when I get off work just to kind of make sure I can pay for my daughter's tuition.
This is why you have so many Americans, excuse my language, so pissed off at Washington. A government shutdown is going on right now. A man has to work on DoorDash when he's really an air traffic controller, that we applauded, and we're up here talking about how much some money is going to cost, and the only person that don't have a check coming is him. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a break.
All right. And nodding along with me during all that, the Republican California Congressman Kevin Kiley, member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, as you can see here in town with us on the Hill. What'd you make of that?
I mean, I think he said it perfectly. It is absolutely outrageous what we're seeing, and Americans, too many Americans, are being forced to pay the price for the excessive partisanship and gridlock in Washington, D.C.
I mean, that man there who's an air traffic controller doesn't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, doesn't care the D or the R or anything, but has to now take up a second job.
Right, yeah, go ahead.
No, and I just wonder sort of what breaks the impasse when you hear stories like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just absolutely outrageous, especially when he's performing such a critical role. And he doesn't care if you're Democrat or Republican. He also doesn't particularly care, I'm sure, whether Democrats or Republicans are to blame for the shutdown. Right. And so that's the problem right now, is that all of the energy is going towards assigning blame to one side or the other, when it should be going towards trying to reach a solution that will get us out of this impasse.
So how do you get to that solution?
Well, look, I want to be very clear that I voted to keep the government open and to avoid a shutdown. I've done that now during the Trump administration. I did the same thing during the Biden administration. I don't agree with what Chuck Schumer is doing. I think it's unreasonable not to pass this short-term CR, even though I'm not a fan of short-term CRs. But that being said, given that he's made it clear that he's not going to do so, we need to find some solution. This is politics. Sometimes you need to work with people who don't agree with you and you think are not acting reasonably.
Do you agree with what Trump is doing? because you and I both know this. If Trump picked up the phone and called Mike Johnson and said, hey, Mike, cut a deal, and Johnson calls you up and says, hey, Kylie, we're cutting a deal, or tells all the Republicans that, it's done, right? So I understand the blame on Schumer. What about your side of the aisle?
Yeah, and I wasn't even saying that for the purpose of saying I'm blaming Schumer. I'm saying that we need to actually forget about who's to blame and find a pathway forward. And so, yes, I'm interested in exploring any and all potential pathways. So Senator Schumer has raised the issue, as of others, of the ACA subsidies. I, like many of my colleagues, are extremely concerned with the idea that people are going to see a sudden increase in premiums. And so if we can, and there's going to need to be a deal on this issue one way or the other.
You'd vote for that?
What's that? So
you'd vote for the premiums?
Well, there's a lot of different possibilities out there. I think that we do need at least some temporary relief. Ultimately, we need to address the rising cost curve of healthcare in this country. But if we could explore that as a pathway out of the shutdown, I don't see why we shouldn't do that.
You know, like, you're a smart guy. You're a Yale Harvard guy, right? I'm sure you could do a lot of things with your life, Congressman. You're a young guy, too, as well. When you sit here and process, like, you're here, you're not back in California, the government shut down. How do you think about just sort of like what, if anything, Congress is going to do going forward?
Well, I think that, you know, as Stephen Smith said in that clip so clearly, like, this really epitomizes why Americans are so frustrated with Washington, D.C. And it is just, and here's the kind of sad thing. Obviously, for people like an air traffic controller who are feeling this directly, it's a catastrophe. Right. But for most Americans, they probably are just kind of like, well, this is par for the course in the sense that Congress is broken, and this is another example of that. You know, I ultimately wanted to come here to try to fix that. Right. And so I think we do need to find ways to find more common ground, and you know, especially to avoid the absolutely devastating consequences that we're seeing pile up all across the country right now.
He's here in Washington, in person. Kevin Kiley, Republican from California.
Great to see you.
Appreciate it. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in. All right, other side of the break. They are running to become the next mayor for New York City. Will the frontrunner Zohran Mamdani gain more ground, or will his recent comments about Hamas open the door for his opponents? Full panel, other side.
Liquid gel.
All right, 6:45 here on the East Coast tonight, and about 14 minutes from now, these three men right here, Zohran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, Curtis Sliwa, will be squaring off for a big debate in the Big Apple tonight. The front runner, you probably know by now, he is a Democratic socialist, how he describes himself. Mamdani, 33 years old, state assemblyman that's been launched into the national political discussion and stardom, many on the left believe, and really many down the middle and even on the right. And a political punching bag as well for some others, including President Trump. But Mamdani had a message yesterday for the president. Watch.
I just want to speak directly to the president, which is that I will not be a mayor like Mayor Adams who will call you to figure out how to stay out of jail. I won't be a disgraced governor like Andrew Cuomo who will call you to ask how to win this election. I can do those things on my own.
Mamdani holds a 13-point lead over the former governor, Andrew Cuomo, but Cuomo has been gaining a little bit here and there in the polls. Of course, the mayor there, Eric Adams, dropped out recently. The former governor will be sure to hit Mamdani tonight as having a potential problem with well over 500,000 Jews who live in New York City. And Mamdani may have given his opponents some ammunition when he seemed to demonstrate a refusal to support the disarmament of Hamas.
Do you believe that Hamas should lay down their weapons and leave the leadership in Gaza?
I believe that any future here in New York City is one that we have to make sure that's affordable for all. And as it pertains to Israel and Palestine, that we have to ensure that there is peace. And that is the future that we have to fight for.
But you won't say that Hamas should lay down their arms and give up leadership in Gaza.
I don't really have opinions about the future of Hamas and Israel beyond the question of justice and safety.
That just one of many that you could expect tonight before Zohran Mamdani. Full panel here with me now. Carla Sands, former ambassador to Denmark and Greenland. Lauren Tomlinson is a Republican strategist. Yemisi Egbawali, Democratic strategist, former chief of staff in the press office to the Biden administration, and Lori Watkins, former policy advisor to President Obama. Hello to you all. Nice to have you all in. This is the big political story this evening. Zohran Mamdani, the polls say he's going to win. The betting markets are even more sure of that, putting him at something like 85, 88% at this point in time. Is he the star? Especially after that performance, going on Fox News and looking at the camera and saying, I want to talk to you, Donald Trump.
Yeah, is he the star? He's the show. He's the whole thing. It's so great that Cuomo and Sliwa are there as supporting characters. I think Curtis getting to still stand on the stage is very generous. I'm glad he's still in the room. Cuomo did not act like he wanted to be the mayor of New York City when he had the chance to run. He is double digits down. It does not matter what he tries to pinpoint Mamdani.
Doesn't matter what he says tonight.
It does not matter. He is not going to get the votes in order to pull ahead. And look, Mamdani has proven that he can duck, dodge, and weave. If he has mastered Fox News, I don't think Andrew Cuomo is going to be an issue for him.
And to all those people that are saying that he's going to turn New York City into this ghetto and businesses are going to leave, I just want to point to Boston. Michelle Wu, she is 40 years old. Came in with very little political experience, okay? She focused on the same things: affordable childcare, affordable housing, free bus services, also putting a freeze on rent. She also, the voters of the state of Massachusetts also voted for a 4% millionaire tax. No businesses left there, Blake. The city is thriving. So for those that are saying
President Trump's threatening pulling World Cup games there.
Okay, and why is he focused on Boston right now also? Because he sees that the city is working and that she is very popular.
All right, so that's what that side of the table is saying. Carla?
Well, Boston is bleeding money for illegal immigrants, and Mamdani is pro-jihadi, pro-Hamas. He is anti-Semitic. He has supported positions that are the antithesis of, I would say, America's greatest capitalist city. New York City is the center, the financial center of the world. We cannot have basically a Marxist who is anti-Semitic running that city. Chicago has warned the New Yorkers, do not vote for this Democrat socialist. You're going to ruin your city like we ruined Chicago.
Is this a runaway train? Like, I wonder how Republicans try to position him going forward. At the end of the day, he's likely to become the mayor of New York City, America's largest city. But Republicans are going to elevate him to something so much more than that.
Very similar to what Republicans did with the squad. They were a really great foil, I think, for Republican policies because they are telegenic, they're energizing. It's understandable why they energize Gen Z, for example. Mamdani's no different with his very, TikTok-y messaging and everything else. But for Republicans, his policies are very out of touch, very, very to the far, far left of where Republicans and centrists tend to lie. It's important to remember that New York City is not to the rest of the country. It is very progressive. So I think when we're talking about the practicalities here, he will most likely win. But for Republicans broadly on a national scale, he's a great foil for them as messaging goes forward.
So here was President Trump yesterday. Mamdani's gotten the attention of Trump all over the place. Here was the president.
We have a communist who's 33 years old, doesn't know a damn thing. Practically, he's never worked a day in his life. I'm not going to send a lot of money to New York. I don't have to. The money comes all through the White House. He hates police. He wants to get rid of all police. I mean, how can a policeman? He hates Jewish people.
So that's the president. Is that messaging going to work against him when Republicans elevate him going forward?
No, it's not going to work.
Not
And
at all?
the squad is basically dismembered. Jamal Bowman no longer in Congress. Cori Bush no longer in Congress. All replaced by people who are more to the middle. Mamdani will get more to the middle. He changed his position on the police. I think being a legislator for the largest city in the world is going to change him a little bit as well.
Bottom line is he's talking about issues that voters care about, especially right now. Affordability, the economy, bringing the prices down for everything. That's what people care about.
He's been a citizen for like 5 minutes. He's from Africa. He doesn't understand Americans.
Is that the best way to go after him, though?
No, I don't think so. But as a matter of fact, he doesn't even understand the American experience. This guy is a recent immigrant. I'm not even sure that he's qualified. He's never run anything.
He precisely understands the American experience.
I'll give you the
He's
last
a great
word.
salesman.
I think ultimately his policies will determine his future success as a politician. He's going to become the next New York mayor. If he succeeds, then I think we're going to have a new populist movement that is going to embrace some of these policies. Most likely from the Republican perspective, I believe he will fail, and that will set the tone, I think, for Gen Z's politics going forward.
You know what's been fascinating about this is back in 2015 and 2016, there was a new guy, and his name was Donald Trump. And every Republican in that building got asked a question of, Trump would say whatever, do you believe, ba 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 ba, fill in the line. And when Mamdani becomes the next mayor of New York, you're going to see in that building every single Democrat be asked, do you believe whatever it is. Something I think to keep an eye on. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Still to come, other side of the break, why the Trump administration is taking away $40 million from California. Huh. We'll look at what's trending next. All right, if you're just getting home, trying to check up on today's top stories, here's some of what's trending on thehill.com right now. This is what we led the show with tonight, actually. Trump to meet Putin in Hungary, an effort to end inglorious war. Round 2 for the world leaders, as following a phone call with Putin today, President Trump announced that he was going to meet in Hungary in the coming weeks to hopefully bring an end to the war in Ukraine. Then there's this also trending. Marjorie Taylor Greene rebukes the Trump administration's multi-billion-dollar bailout of Argentina. The Georgia Republican congresswoman speaking out against the White House's planned financing for Argentina to the tune of up to $40 billion to try to help stabilize that economy. A lot of conservatives are asking questions about that. And finally tonight, the Transportation Secretary pulls $40 million from California over English-only trucker rule. The Secretary of Transportation, with that announcement, he says the money will be withheld from California for the state failing to comply with the English language proficiency guidelines for truck drivers. To check out those stories and a whole lot more, all you have to do is head on over to thehill.com. All right, still to come here on News Nation, just seconds away. How about this? Elizabeth Vargas reports. Look at who she's talking to, the WWE Hall of Famer, Diamond Dallas Page. How cool is that? That's coming up just 10 seconds away here on News Nation. I thank you so much for being with us tonight here on The Hill. I'm Blake Burman. I'll see you tomorrow. I hand it over to Elizabeth.